Hello everyone. Stories of vampires have frightened people for centuries. The stories in fact trace back all the way to prehistoric times. Now, although the characters were not always called vampires, they were monsters sharing one common trait. They subsisted by consuming the life force of a living creature. Now, the modern ideal of the vampire emerged in 18th century Eastern Europe. There was a dramatic increase in the number of deaths from unknown diseases, and medicine had not advanced to the point of being able to explain these deaths. So people turned to supernatural causes. They dug up and examined corpses and thought they had found evidence to support the supernatural. The corpses appeared to have longer hair and longer nails. Bellies were bloated and there was blood at the corners of the mouth. And these findings led them to conclude that these corpses were really not dead at all and were leaving their graves at night to feed on the living. This terrifying belief led to a frenzy of vampire hunting and gave birth to rituals performed to kill these corpses once and for all. Now, the rituals varied, but generally they featured such grisly practices as burning, chopping off heads, and staking the corpse to the coffin to prevent it from getting up. So evidence interpreted as signs of post-mortem reanimation in the 18th century are actually the normal symptoms of death. When a body decomposes, it dehydrates, causing the hair and nails to extend. Bacteria in the stomach causes gases that cause the belly to bloat and forces material and blood out through the mouth. Now, eventually the vampire hunts did die down, but the vampire stories survived in local superstition and in works of literature. Bram Stoker's Dracula is the most famous book to tell the vampire story. Stoker incorporated some historical information, but it was the local myths and superstition that inspired the main elements of his story. For example, the Transylvania setting, the use of garlic as a defense, and the staking of the vampire's heart as a means of destruction, all rooted in myth. Now, Stoker invented some traits that have endured over the years, such as the vampire's fear of crucifixes, inability to see a reflection in the mirror, and weakness in sunlight. Now, some traits may change or evolve based on the storyteller, but as long as the creature continues to subsist off a living life force, the creature belongs to the vampire dynasty. But it's the continued reimagining of the vampire legend that actually gives the vampire its immortality. So with Halloween fast approaching, it's a good time to indulge in books and movies featuring the mysterious and terrifying vampire. The best place to start is always the beginning, so Bram Stoker's Dracula tops the list of vampire books. This book has become the benchmark for vampires in literature. But here are a couple more books you may enjoy. Stephen King's second novel, Salem's Lot, had everyone sleeping with the lights on. He tells the story of a writer who returns to a childhood home in Jerusalem's Lot, Maine, only to discover that the residents are becoming vampires. Now, you will recognize many of the traditional traits suggested by Bram Stoker in Stephen King's story. Anne Rice gave us the vampire Lestat in her debut novel, Interview with the Vampire. This book was later made into a movie, which is considered by some to be a masterpiece of a genre. The book and the movie managed to blend drama, horror, romance, and opera, and defy convention by creating sympathy for a monster. Now, many years before Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin wrote the novel Fever Dream. This story takes place in 1857 and is set on the Antebellum Mississippi River. A riverboat captain accepts an offer from a mysterious stranger and finds himself in the middle of a vampire's quest to unite his race with humanity. The author himself describes the novel as Bram Stoker meets Mark Twain. Let the Right One In by Swedish novelist John Lindqvist is a spellbinding novel that does not follow classic plot lines. It tells the story of a relationship between a 12-year-old boy and a centuries-old vampire child. In 2008, the Swedish film adaptation made the list of the 100 best films of world cinema. This might also be a good time to revisit the movie The Lost Boys. This movie reinvented the classic monster movie to appeal to a modern society. It was aimed at a teenage audience and starred some of the most promising young actors of the time, including Kiefer Sutherland, Corey Haim, Alexander Winter, Billy Wirth, not to mention Edward Herrmann, Diane Wiest, and Barnard Hughes. It is now considered a cult movie and transformed the Gothic impression of the vampire to a pop culture icon. And let's not forget Charlene Harris's books, the Sookie Stackhouse series. These books were the basis for HBO's series True Blood. Now, True Blood is a guilty pleasure with memorable characters, a Southern Gothic vampire romance. It's definitely for an adult audience. So, are vampires real? Of course not. Happy Halloween, everyone. See you next time.